Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by littleshaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. Today I wanted to talk to you about cutting off contact with narcissists and other toxic people. This is something many people struggle with, so I wanted to talk to you about it on the show today. Dealing with pathologically narcissistic people is often extremely difficult. In some cases, it can be impossible. They can be rude, callous, paranoid, accusatory, cruel, indifferent, and much worse. Many people long to cut the narcissistic person they deal with out of their lives completely, but are unable to figure out how to do it. They are afraid of angering the narcissist or other people that might be involved in the situation. They don't want to hurt anybody, or they're afraid that it could lead to negative consequences. Unfortunately, any or all of these things might happen when you decide to stop contact with a toxic person. There's no way to change the situation without risking negative consequences. It's the nature of the type of person that you're dealing with. In a perfect world, you would be able to tell this person you don't want to communicate or deal with them anymore, and they would respect that. Sadly, the world is not perfect. Narcissistic people and their enablers have a vested interest in keeping things just the way they are. You will more than likely meet resistance when you try to cut toxic people out of your life, if not outright anger and backlash. It's best not to exhaust yourself trying to figure out the way to make a perfect, painless exit. It does not exist. There's no way to presuppose what people will do or how they will react and edit every single thing you do and say in order to try to manage that. It's not possible. You just have to do what's best for you in as honest and straightforward a way as you possibly can. It will not be easy at first, but it's important to tell the truth and stand up for yourself and your own well-being. You owe it to yourself, and it's important to counteract the conditioning that demands you do for others before yourself. You counteract that conditioning by deliberately acting against it. A lot of people want to change things without actually having to change them, but of course you can't do that. It doesn't work. It feels uncomfortable at first, and we're not going to pretend differently, but the more you do it, the easier it'll get. Along with the fear of hurting others or upsetting them is also the problem of guilt. This is another result of the conditioning that many people in this situation have been subjected to. People who end up entangled in toxic relationships have often been conditioned to believe that saying no is wrong or that considering themselves in any way is selfish. These things are nonsense, and on some level, you know that. You're just as worthy of consideration as anybody else, and if somebody has a problem with that, they can work it out themselves. Whatever their feelings are about it is their responsibility, not yours. You have to look out for yourself. And if you feel that a relationship is toxic or harmful, you have to do something about that. Waiting around for the toxic person to change is not only giving them control over your life and your happiness, it's generally pointless. Why should they change? You are the one who's unhappy with the situation, not them. People often ask how the narcissist feels when you cut them off. It's usually because people want to believe that the narcissist is hurt by this, or that they'll have an epiphany and they're going to see the error of their ways and everything's going to change. This is not likely to happen. It's more likely that they will become angry at the person who's cutting them off and feel that this is unfair and abusive behavior. They may be hurt, but this would generally not be because they love the other person. They are generally hurt because their ego has taken a hit, and they may become frightened because they're not in control of the situation, and this makes them very uncomfortable. They might imagine all sorts of fantastical reasons for the end of the relationship or the termination of contact, usually reasons that have nothing to do with their own behavior, by the way. I know it seems easy to say, but you can't worry about how they feel. They're going to feel however they want to feel. It may be logical, it may be completely illogical, but it's something that you have absolutely no control over. You can only worry about your actions, your well-being, and your behavior. Many people entangled in toxic relationships are afraid that people will not like them if they say no, or they don't want to create a problem because confrontation makes them really uncomfortable. Now, most people don't like confrontation, but unfortunately in life it's necessary sometimes. Not everybody has your best interests at heart. Not everyone necessarily understands the way situations affect other people. It's your responsibility to tell them and to stand up for yourself. Some people are so concerned with making sure that others don't feel neglected and abandoned that they've neglected and abandoned themselves. But you can't pour from an empty cup. If you really want to be able to care for the other people in your life who love and care for you, you need to take care of yourself and keep firm boundaries, not just with toxic people, but with everybody. Otherwise, you'll become exhausted and you'll be able to care for nobody, least of all yourself. It can be very difficult to cut off contact with a toxic person, especially pathologically narcissistic people. Not only is the situation psychologically rooted in patterns, habits, and conditioning you've likely had for years, but it can be a literal addiction. Studies have shown that drama uses the same mechanisms and creates the same reaction in the brain that opiates do. Opiates like morphine and heroin and pain pills. It is literally addictive. This is one reason that it's so hard to stay away from people who feed that addiction. Life away from them is boring, it's stressful, it's upsetting, it's anxious, it's irritating. The desire to be around them and feed that addiction is very, very strong. Like any other addiction, it has to be fought one day at a time. And like any other addiction, you cannot quit if you're still using. This is not easy, it's hard. But kicking any addiction is hard. It's possible with willpower, self-care, and understanding to break free and stay free. Now, on top of the very real addiction, the situation is often complicated by those patterns of conditioning that we mentioned earlier. Guilt, self-esteem issues, self-doubt, being shamed out of focusing on your own needs, carrying the responsibility for other people and their feelings. All of these things can contribute to feeling trapped in a situation with a toxic person. In order to resolve these things, it's necessary to create boundaries with all people, not just toxic people, all people. And it might be necessary to remove toxic people from your life entirely. In order to change your life, you have to do different things, even if they're difficult. It's not possible to make a change without leaving your comfort zone. That's one of the reasons so many people have such a hard time with it, because that's really difficult. It's painful. One of the most important things that you need to remember whenever you're learning to set boundaries and cutting off toxic people is that it's okay to say no. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean you're selfish. It doesn't mean you don't care. If someone says that it does, they have their own motivation for saying that, because that is not the truth. Friends or family who take issue with you caring for yourself or having your own needs are going to have to accept the situation. Their feelings are not your responsibility. You have to do what's right for yourself. Be firm, be assertive, and most importantly, be honest. There's no reason to be mean, there's no reason to be cruel, but be honest. It's tempting to make excuses or tell lies, but it's necessary to be honest about what you're doing and why. Not just for the other person, but for yourself. Don't be embarrassed or ashamed to stand up for yourself. It's time to really internalize that relationships are not just about one person giving and the other one taking. They're supposed to be equal, where everyone's needs are important, everyone's rights and boundaries are respected, and everyone's feelings are considered. If that's not the case in any relationship in your life, it's time to make a change. I hope this clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. I take appointments online and over the phone, so if you're interested in speaking with me, you can visit littleshaman.org and click the Book an Appointment tab to do that. Or you can use the link that's available in the information section of this video down below. You've been listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by littleshaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you and have a wonderful day.